"You have been curious," he said, his voice low and measured. Too curious. Ada's throat went dry. She couldn't speak. "Do you know why I'm here?" he asked. She shook her head. "I keep the balance," he said, "between this world and the next. People come, they buy, they leave. They do not question." Ada finally found her voice. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to disturb you." Lag, a city that rarely ever sleeps, was just beginning to stir up. Ada, a sharp-eyed young woman known for her inquisitive nature, was already up and about. She wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders as she stepped into the dimly lit street, her sandals clapping softly against the uneven pavement. Like every other morning, she was heading to the market, a vibrant, chaotic hub where the life pulsed in the form of shouts, laughter, and the clinking of coins. Ada loved the market. It was her escape from monotony of everyday life. But lately, something had caught her attention and it was beginning to bother her. There was a vendor, a man she had never seen speak much, who ran the most peculiar fruit stand. It wasn't the vendor's appearance that was strange. He was a modest-looking man, always dressed in simple clothes. No, what unsettled Ada was how his stand seemed to operate. It was always there, no matter how early she arrived, no matter how late she left. His stand was perfectly arranged. The fruits were always freshly plucked, and not once had she seen him set it up or packed it away. Ada had mentioned it to her friend Ngozi a few days ago. She asked Ngozi if she had noticed the fruit vendor who sells fruits that looks like they've been polished by the angels. Ngozi had laughed at Ada, brushing off her concerns. "Ah, Ada, you think too much. Maybe the man just knows how to hustle. Not everyone has time to talk like us." But Ada wasn't convinced. There was something too perfect about that stand, something unnatural. That night, as Ada lay in her small room staring at the ceiling, she made a decision. She would get to the bottom of this mystery. The thought kept her awake, and by the time her alarm buzzed at 4:30 a.m., she was already up, her plan set in motion. She left her house before the first light of the dawn, clutching a small flashlight in one hand. When she arrived at the market, it was still cloaked in darkness. A few traders were beginning to arrive, carrying crates and baskets, but the spot where the mysterious vendor's stand always stood was empty. Ada hid behind a nearby stack of empty wooden crates, her heart thudding in her chest. The minutes dragged by, and the world around her slowly came to life. Birds began to chirp. The faint orange glow of the rising sun touched the horizon. Then, just as the day's first rays of light spilled into the market, it happened. Ada blinked, and the stand was there. It was a gradual appearance. One moment, the spot was empty. The next, it was fully stocked with the neatly arranged fruits that gleamed as though they had been plucked moments ago. The vendor sat behind it, his face calm and unreadable, as if he had always been there. Ada's breath caught in her throat. She rubbed her eyes, convinced herself she was imagining things. But the fruit stand remained. She glanced around, expecting someone else to have seen what she had. But the few traders nearby paid no attention. Ada waited until the market was buzzing with activity before she approached the vendor. Her legs felt shaky as she walked up to the stand, but her curiosity overpowered her fear. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. The vendor looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon, madam. How can I help you?" Ada hesitated. Up close, he looked even more ordinary than she had ever imagined. His hands rough from years of work, and his eyes kind but distant. Ada began to stutter and later said to the man that she was wondering how he manages to set up so early. Your stand is always ready before anyone else. And the vendor chuckled softly. I like to start my day early, he said simply. But no one ever sees you, Ada pressed. I was here before everyone and your stand wasn't here. Then suddenly it appeared. The vendor's smile didn't waver. Sometimes we don't see what's right in front of us, he said critically. Ada frowned. That doesn't make any sense. Does it need to? The vendor asked, tickling his head slightly. The fruits are fresh. The prices are fair. What more do you need to know? Ada opened her mouth to argue, but something in his tone silenced her. It wasn't dismissive or rude. It was almost kind. She stepped back, confused and unsatisfied. That evening, Ada returned to the market. She hid behind the same stack of crates and waited. The market slowly emptied as traders packed up their goods and went home, their laughter and chatters fading into the night. But the vendor remained, sitting quietly behind his stand. As the moon rose high in the sky, Ada's patience began to wear thin. She rubbed her eyes, fighting off the urge to sleep, when she suddenly realized the stand was gone. She hadn't had anything, no sound of crates being moved, no footsteps, nothing. One moment, the vendor had been there, and the next, the spot was empty. Ada stepped out of her hiding place, her heart racing. She stared at the ground, where the fruit stand had been, but there was no traces of it, no scattered fruits, no footprint. It was as though it had never been there. The next day, Ada shared her experience with Ngozi. So you mean to say that the stand just vanished? Ngozi asked, her eyes wide. Ada nodded. Yes, one moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. Ngozi's expression grew serious. Ngozi went ahead to tell Ada that she had encountered a ghost vendor. And Ada screamed in fear. They said he has been there for years, Ngozi explained. No one knows where he comes from or where he goes. Some say he's a spirit sent to test our honesty. Others say he's a guardian of the market, ensuring that the fruits we eat are pure. Ada stared at her friend, her mind racing. And no one's ever tried to follow him? Ngozi shook her head. Those who try never find anything, and they say it's better to let him be. From that day on, Ada continued to visit the market, but she never confronted the vendor again. She still watched from a distance, her curiosity lingering, but there was a strange comfort in the mystery now. Every time she passed the spot where the stand had appeared and disappeared, she felt a shiver, a reminder that some things in life are beyond explanation. The weeks after Ada's encounter with the mysterious vendor were uneventful. The market continued its usual rhythm, noisy, vibrant, yet Ada felt a shift. She couldn't shake the feelings that she was being watched. Every time she passed the vendor's stand, she felt his calm eyes following her. His smiles, once warm, now felt like a silent warning. What made Ada fear the most was her endless nightmare about the vendor. She dreamt about herself walking through the market at night when she saw the vendor sitting right behind his stand, his face hidden in shadows. The fruits on the table were rotten, their sweet scent replaced by a sickly stench. He would call Ada's name softly in the dream, and Ada would wake up drenched in sweat. By the third week, Ada could no longer ignore the sign. Something or someone was trying to reach her. One evening, after another restless night, Ada decided to seek help. She visited Mama Efe, an elderly woman known for her wisdom and connection to the spiritual world. As Ada explained her experience, Mama Efe listened silently, her sharp eyes never leaving Ada's face. When Ada finished, the old woman sighed deeply. You should never have disturbed him, Mama Efe said, her voice low and steady. Disturbed who? Ada asked, though she already knew the answer. The vendor, Mama Efe replied. He is not like us. He belongs to the space between the worlds. He does not like to be questioned. Ada felt a chill crawl down her spine. But I didn't mean any harm, she whispered. Intentions doesn't matter. Mama Efe said, you have crossed a line and now he knows your name. What do I do? Ada asked, her voice trembling. Mama Efe handed her a small pouch filled with herbs. Burn this tonight. It will protect you, but you must also apologize. Go to his stand tomorrow, buy something and leave without asking questions. Do not speak to him unless he speaks to you. Ada nodded, clutching the pouch like a lifeline. That night, Ada did as Mama Efe instructed. She burned the herbs, their sharp, earthy scent filling her small room. For the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. The next morning, Ada went to the market. As she approached the vendor's stand, she felt her knees weaken. He was there, sitting as always. His face was calm, but his eyes sharper than she had ever seen. Good morning, she said softly, placing a naira on the table. She picked up a bunch of bananas and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Ada, she froze. Slowly, she turned back to face him. His smiles were gone, replaced by an expression she could not read. You have been curious, he said, his voice low and measured. Too curious. Ada's throat went dry. She couldn't speak. Do you know why I'm here? He asked. She shook her head. I keep the balance, he said, between this world and the next. People come, they buy, they leave. They do not question. Ada finally found her voice. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just curious, he finished for her. Curiosity is dangerous, Ada. It opens doors that should remain closed. She felt tears prick her eyes. I will leave you alone, I promise. The vendor studied her for a long moment before nodding. See that you do. But remember, Ada, not every mystery is meant to be solved. As Ada turned to leave, she felt the weight of his gaze on her back. Weeks after, Ada avoided the vendor's stand. She stopped at different markets and changed her routine, but she could not escape the feeling that something had shifted in her life. Then one night, as she walked home, she saw him. The vendor was standing at the corner of her street, his face obscured by the shadows. He didn't move, he didn't speak, but Ada felt his presence like a weight on her chest. She quickened her pace, refusing to look back until she reached her front door. When she finally turned around, he was gone. The next morning, Ada returned to Mama Efe. Her heart felt heavy with fear. He's watching me, she said, her voice trembling. I did what you said, but he's still there. Mama Efe shook her head. You have drawn his attention, child. The only thing you can do now is to live your life carefully. Respect the boundaries of the unknown, and he may let you be. Over time, the vendor's appearance became less frequent, but Ada never felt truly free. The experience changed her. She became quiet, more cautious. The market, once her favorite place, now felt like a place of shadows and secrets. And although she never spoke about it again, she carried the lessons with her. They say curiosity killed the cat, but in Ada's case, it did something far worse. It opened her eyes to a world she wasn't meant to see. A world that exists alongside ours, silent and unseen. And in the heart of every bustling market, every crowded street, that world waits for those foolish enough to seek it.